What is going on, everybody? Welcome to Dylan Talks Tone. Welcome to the Just Gonna Say It podcast. It's Tuesday afternoon at 4 p.m. How y'all doing? Hope you're having a great week so far. We are having one here. We are making stuff and getting ready for some stuff. I'll tell you about that here in a minute. Before we get started, I want to say thanks to everybody who comes and listens to these things or watches them. You can listen to them later in the week. Basically on Fridays, I've been uploading the live streams to all of the podcast platforms, so you can listen to them there. Also, these are always no ads when we do them live, so you can support the channel with Super Chat if you want. You can go to DylanTalksTone.com and you can buy some stuff. Either some merch, like a bottle opener or a t-shirt or a flask or, who knows what. Any of that kind of stuff, a hat, whatever. Or you could buy some pickups, capacitors, pots, all that kind of stuff. We're going to have a really interesting video tomorrow. We'll get into that actually as part of our questions today. We're doing stupid questions today. So no such thing as a stupid question. That's what we're doing today. Volume 10, I think. We will have another custom drop on Saturday. That worked a lot better, doing a video to go along with it, so you can kind of understand what we're doing and why. So that was kind of fun. So a bunch of people bought some of those Enduros, those custom Enduros. So that's pretty cool. So we've got another really cool thing coming on Saturday I've actually never done before. So I think you're going to dig that. That's coming out Saturday. And then the other thing I want to tell everybody about before we get going is if you're in the Nashville area on the 22nd, whatever that weekend is of the month. So I guess it would be here. Hang on. It would be the 21st, the 22nd, and the 23rd. I will be in Nashville at the Amigo Guitar Show, hawking my wares. Well, I'll have a bunch of stuff there. I'll be there with Austin from Runway Audio, so that's going to be pretty neato. We got a big old booth, and we're going to do all the thing. Super chat from Dastardly Dave. Thank you so much. Ad free is cool too. I appreciate your super chat and your support of the channel. You're always in there doing that. So one of the things you could do is you can get in the chat right over here and you can ask a bunch of questions. You can put a bunch of question marks in front of it. We are going to be asking a bunch of questions today, basically every couple of months or every month or so. I'll go through some of the YouTube comments and try to get some good questions out of there, some funny ones, just overall fun, and chat about those things. And hopefully this will also trigger some questions that you may have, and then we can discuss guitar stuff. So that'll be super duper fun. And then I get to go see my grandson after this. So we're going to have a pretty good day. Yeah. So let's see. There are no dumb questions, just dumb people who slow down the class. I disagree. There are definitely dumb questions, but that's okay. This is what we're here for. This is what we do. So we are going to get started. Oh, this is tiny, tiny print, and I'm really blind. This dude on the Sweetwater setup video, if one is counting on Sweetwater to do a setup, maybe you need to learn how to do such simple adjustments yourself. I find their so-called setup plec technicians to be complete idiots, because he knows how to run a plec, apparently. Every time I get a new guitar, I have to spend an entire day working on it to correct their so-called inspection and setup. $300 for a plec? Give me a break. Interesting. So, wait, so you said that we should learn how to do these simple things ourselves, and then you said that we should... That you take all day. You take all day to do that? That's weird. It is actually pretty easy. I think people misunderstand the plec machine too. That's basically to make the frets flat. It doesn't set the guitar up, okay? All it does is make the fretwork good. As in, it makes the fretwork really nice and makes it super flat. And there's some neat things you can do with it too. You can play around with radius, and there's some fun stuff you can do. But for the purpose of a guitar setup, it just makes sure the fretwork is really good. And to be honest with you, if you buy a Gibson, don't get it because they have already played. There's a lot of brands. Do your research. There's a lot of brands that have plec to guitar, already before it even got there. Now, just because a guitar is plecked doesn't mean that the guitar is going to get to you perfectly set up. Remember, there's weather and all kinds of other stuff that goes into it. And just because a guitar is plecked just doesn't mean it's just going to be this dream that comes out of the case. All that means is that the fretwork is good. Okay, so just don't forget that. Yeah, super cool. Kyle, thank you for the super chat. I had a Fender Tele Thin Line 72 with wide range humbuckers stolen from me. It got a cocked wah sound. How did it do that? Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. Maybe whoever stole it from you put a capacitor in there. That's weird. That's a weird one. Thanks for the super chat, by the way. I appreciate that. Let's see. All right, let's do this next one. These are fun. On what is the difference between a Stratocaster pickup and a Telecaster pickup? Why is the base plate of a Tele larger than the base plate on a Strat? Excuse me. And why no base plate on the neck pickup? Okay, so this is a good question. The reason, we have to look at the evolution of Fender, okay? Before the Telecaster, there was a lap steel guitar. And all that Leo Fender did is he just took the pickup out of the lap steel and he put it into a guitar. It needed a mounting solution and a way to ground to the strings. So he put a metal plate on the bottom. It did not have that metal plate in the lap steel, but he's a big reuser of parts. Okay, so that's what he did. At that time, there was no Stratocaster, and at that time there was no neck pickup in the Telecaster. If you ever look, I have a video where I played the very first Telecaster prototype with a neck pickup in it. It was the guitar that they actually used to test. It was like serial number prototype 004 or something really early. They used it to test paint colors and they used it to test this neck pickup. And so they just made it to fit. This was just kind of make to fit stuff. And so that's why the base plate is different. So then when he could come up with a ground up idea, which was the Stratocaster, it was more of an adaptation of various things and he put it all together, but he didn't, I'm not saying he didn't use leftover parts, but the Stratocaster had more of its own parts developed in it. And so that's why they were so much different. That's really cool. That's a cool question. I like that old Tele Strat stuff. Let's see. Shielding, how it affects your guitar tone. But the pots and switch penetrate the shield. No? Okay, so this is shielding is often misunderstood. So first of all, let's just get this out of the way, and this will probably solve that question. Faraday cage in a guitar is dumb. Don't even worry about it. There's a difference between a Faraday cage and a shield, okay? And because of a lot of sciencey stuff that I don't want to get into now, but we're talking about wavelengths of 60 cycle hum and where the noise comes from, which is over the air, not through the mains 99% of the time. All those kinds of things. A Faraday cage doesn't really do anything in a guitar, but a shield does. And so all you need is square inches of shield that is grounded, and it basically catches the electromagnetic interference like a satellite dish, and it runs it to ground before it gets to the pickups, and then those pickups send it to the amplifier and amplify it, and you hear it as noise. That's like the 30-second version. There's a lot more to it than that, but just because the pots stick through the shielding, it's not penetrating a shield. It's literally just you're really caring about the square inches that you have available. So if you have a pick guard, or if you have something else that you can shield the most square inches of the guitar and then ground it, that is what you are trying to do. What's the best way to grind down my Tele bridge plate so that the strings making their way from the Bigsby don't touch the bridge plate? Honestly, unless you're in a real financial bind, well, I mean, an angle grinder will do it in 2 seconds. But if you're in a real financial bind, you might have to find a way. But you can go on eBay and pretty easily find a bridge that'll work for that. It might not be an amazing one, but you'll probably spend more on an angle grinder to do it, and it'll look ugly, than actually buying the right bridge. They're not super expensive. Why do I see a ground wire screwed to the pickup cavity on some guitars, even though there's no shielding paint or foil in the cavity? I saw it on a Squier Strat recently. That's because that paint that you see in there actually is shielding paint, even though it doesn't look like it. The thing about shielding paint's interesting is that it loses its shieldiness over time. So foil doesn't, but shielding paint can lose it over time. Yeah, I mean, you could just look on eBay. What's another place that might have those? All Parts probably has them too. All Parts probably has them too. If you're trying to go budget, grind it with an angle grinder. If you're trying to do it right, just buy the right bridge. They're out there. How to build a Stratocaster pickguard. Does grounding the 3 pots together negate the need for a trem claw ground wire? Oh, more grounding questions. No, it does not negate it. You have to ground all of the components in the guitar, except for the switch. So ground, the pots and the pickups to the jack. Everything terminates in the jack. And then you have to ground the trem claw, because that's where your string ground comes from on a Strat. Your string ground actually comes from grounding it to the trem. On a Telecaster, it comes from grounding it to the bridge base plate. So the bridge pickup base plate. So yeah, that is how you do it. So you still need that. Pickup demos are a pain. They are very much of a pain. McKnight is an Eastman guitar pimp. Blah, don't like that guy. This is an interesting hot take here. I get this a lot too, because I like a particular guitar that you don't like, then I'm a bad guy. What the heck? This is a funny, it's a funny way to live. If we were to count all the things that I like and all the things that you like, your list would probably be shorter. So why am I in the wrong? I like everything. And I enjoy stuff. And if you think that a certain person that you see on YouTube is some sort of shill, maybe they are. Maybe they are getting financial compensation to talk about something, and you have to evaluate that. But I know Phil. Him and I've had a lot of conversations, and I will tell you, he doesn't. He's pretty straight. He's pretty straight. If something's crap, he'll tell you. He's really straight about stuff. That's why I like him, because I'm kind of like him too when it comes to that stuff. There's always going to be people that accuse anybody selling anything, or anybody liking anything, or anybody saying anything nice about anything of being a shill. That just tells me that they need to go to betterhelp.com/DylanTalksTone, because you can get a discount and get some help. Because that's one of those things where if you just hate everything, you need help. You know what I mean? I like stuff. So I'm going to talk about the stuff I like on this channel. And when I talk about the stuff I like, I'm going to tell you where to get it. Sometimes that helps me, and I'll always tell you when it does. And sometimes it doesn't. And I'll even tell you where to get stuff that doesn't help me because it's good. I'll just tell you where to get all the stuff I like. I think it's really important to just do it all the time, right? Whether I get compensated for it or not. And I think Phil does a good job of that. So whoever you are, betterhelp.com/DylanTalksTone. That does help me out. Okay. I'm sure you guys are happier living in a house, but I have to admit, I miss the traveling days when you sat outside the motorhome and did battle with garbage trucks and airplanes. I go back and rewatch those every so often. Thanks for all the stuff you share. That's a funny one. Actually, I don't hear that very often. Usually it's comments on those videos. Why are you outside? This is dumb. Or what, does your wife not let you in the house? Like we don't get along or something. Obviously I don't see Thursday nights. I miss being on the road. I miss traveling a lot. We really, really loved it. It was really, really fun. It was a great couple of years doing that. But honestly, this is all your fault. We're so busy now that we kind of outgrew being able to do it in a motorhome. You know, we were making pickups in a motorhome on a little Bass Pro Shops table. And the business just kept growing, and we outgrew being able to do that. And then, of course, family too. You know, now we have a grandkid. Now we have all of our, you know, all the kids live around here, and so we're family people. So we're, you know, putting them first over our desire to want to be gone all the time. So, and now I got a puppy, so you know, I have to stay home all the time now. Let's see. Let's see. Can you explain why a buffer should go on before and not after a long cable run? So yes, because what happens is the signal gets lost in the cable. So you want to push it through the cable. A buffer pushes signal, for the lack of a better word, think of it as a push. Okay? Don't think of it as a pull. That is not the technical, that's not how it actually works. Somebody's going to, well, ground actually draws it. Okay, whatever. Screw that. In real life, you're trying to push the signal. Okay? Think of it that way. So if you start with your guitar, and remember that a guitar is a passive device. So everything after the pickups is robbing signal from it, including the length of your cable. So if your cable is part of your guitar circuit. So then it gets to the pedal board, and then you have a long cable run after that. You're just going to continue to lose the intended signal that you were making with your pickups. If you put a buffer in front of it, now all of a sudden you're pushing it. And all of a sudden you're not losing it anymore. Well, you're still losing it, but you've boosted it, and so you're offsetting that, if that makes sense. If you put it at the end, you've already lost it before it got there. And then you're just amplifying noise, right? So don't put it at the end, put it at the beginning, and boost it up to send it. If you do it afterwards, you're just going to be boosting noise because it's already gone. That's a good question. Thanks for asking that. Let's see. You play lefty. You are a lefty, but play righty. Why? By the way, me too. It's just the way I picked up the guitar. I'll tell you why. When I was a kid, we had a guitar store. That's kind of how I got started in all this stuff. We had Martins and Gibsons and Fenders and Ovations and all kind of stuff. And it was when I was a kid. And it was, and my dad told me, he's like, you know, if you want to play guitar, you probably should learn how to play right-handed. Otherwise, you know, as you other lefties know who play left-handed, you're going to basically get stuck with a black Strat for the rest of your life because that's all you're going to ever be able to get your hands on. And so, you know, it's better now, but, you know, for a long time, it has been a black Strat or nothing. So I kind of learned to play right-handed. I will say I'm always curious to know, how much better would I be? Probably not. Or how much different would it be for me if I would have learned to play right-handed? Or left-handed. I've tried to transition and I can't. And I mean my guitar playing direction. I can't. And I've tried to figure it out, and so now I just play right-handed. But it's always been a thing that I've always been curious about. What's the difference between a P90 and a Jazzmaster pickup? A Jazzmaster pickup is basically a Strat pickup that's flat. That's all it is. It's literally it's like a Strat pickup that is 10,000 winds and then squished so that it's really short and really fat. So the coil goes way out. Okay? So think of a donut, right? And then just push on it. When you push on the top of the donut, what happens? You can make it shorter, and then it'll just keep coming out and out and out, right? It's the same thing. So you take 10,000 winds on a Strat pickup, pretend, and then you just squish it down to 1/8 of an inch tall, and the coil's just wide, wide, wide. That's what a Jazzmaster pickup is. A P90 pickup is sort of like the screw side of a humbucker with more magnets, with twice as many magnets, actually. So it's a 1/4 inch tall with screws going down through the middle with 2 humbucker magnets on the bottom. Completely different structure. We have a P90 that fits in a Jazzmaster cover, but it's not the same pickup. It's just a P90, really. That's why they sound so different. The coil dimension is different. The magnets are different. Everything is different. Everything is different. There is not one, I'll tell you this right now. Between the two, the actual construction of the pickup, there is not one part that crosses over except the spool of wire itself. There's not one part that crosses over. Let's see. What's the difference in pickups for regular guitars, bass and baritone guitars? If so, what are they? Nothing really. You can wind them for different strengths to do different stuff. Obviously, coil or string spacing is going to be different. You know, there's less strings, but then also, you know, you're going to have like the strings are going to be further apart and closer together and stuff like that. But really, it's not that big a deal. For example, I'll give you an example. A 51P bass pickup is very, very similar to just like a Strat pickup, right? It's a little different. The size is a little different, but it's not that much different. So the magnets on the JM and Strat pickup are pole pieces. They're not pole pieces. They're rod magnets. Pole pieces are the steel pieces that you see in the slug side of a humbucker, and the screw poles are the screw pole pieces of a humbucker. Let's get that terminology correct. Pole pieces, magnetic pole pieces are steel pieces that go in P90s and humbuckers. Magnetic rods, Alnico rod magnets are what goes in a Jazzmaster, a Stratocaster, a Jazz bass, a P bass, and a Telecaster. Yep. Yeah, those are great questions, man. Thank you for those questions, y'all. Those are great. Let's go into this next one. Okay. Epiphone Les Paul versus Gibson Les Paul. What's the real differences? How is it possible that the difference is so drastic? One sounds like a drunk guitar player at our local bar, and the Gibson sounds like a polished, finished record. Are they purposely trying to make them sound so drastically different to justify the price of the Gibson? Seems like they could have at least gotten closer to the sound of the original if they actually tried, even within the budget. You know, it's an interesting question. That's going to be, you know, there's going to be a lot of people that don't agree with that. They're going to say, well, they sound exactly the same. You know, those guitars are really different. Construction-wise, quality of parts-wise, sound-wise, Epiphone versus a Gibson, they are very, very different when you look at them technically. When you look at them technically, they're different. But I don't think they're that far apart. Obviously, an Epiphone feels way different than a Gibson. You know, it's a lot to do, kind of like what we said in the video yesterday. It's all in what is important to you as a guitar player. You know, if you want to play a thing that looks like a Les Paul, but you don't have $3,000, then play an Epiphone. There's nothing wrong with that. You know what I mean? Yeah, it doesn't really matter. Let's see. Oh, this is a long one. Guitar setup must be harder than I thought. While I agree with the majority of this, I do feel like nut slots shouldn't need adjusting on high-end guitars unless I'm going to a different string gauge to what it has installed. Everything else is adjustable for a reason, and I would consider regular guitar maintenance, but the average player isn't set up to do nut slots. With today's technology, it should be easy enough to build a nut to within 2 to 3 thousandths tolerance or less. So, and he goes on to talk about cheaper mass-produced guitars. But here's the problem with that. I understand your sentiment and why it would bother you. But the problem is, as a guitar builder, unless I communicate with you directly, I don't know what 2 to 3 thousandths range you want your nut in. And not everybody, this is really hard to believe for a lot of people, but not everybody wants 15 thousandths, 20 thousandths, 25 thousandths, 30 thousandths on all strings. I don't, when I set a guitar up for me, set the nut height the same on every string. I don't. And I'm not the only one. There's a lot of people. It depends on the fret size. It depends on how the person plays. It depends on, let's see, what else it could depend on how much relief you play with, right? All those things matter. So if you play with a lot of relief, you can get away with your lower nut slot height will be in a different place than if you play with less relief. So you can't just make a judgment and say the nut slots need to be this deep for everybody. It won't work. And once you grind it away, so if I set my guitar up the way I want it to, with no neck relief, because I don't like that, and then I give it to you, then the nut slots are in a different spot. What if it ends up being too low? What if it ends up being too low for you, and now you have buzzes? You can't put material back in the slot unless you're a cheap ass and you use super glue and, sawdust or whatever. But then you'd have to replace it. So you leave them high from the factory and you let every user specify how they want that done. Now, for the most part, people are going to be decently okay with whatever comes from the factory. Personally, I am not. And here's the thing. If you never watched YouTube before, you would probably be happy with it too. It's just that people get super bent on what they think what they think their specifications should be. Just play the guitar for a while and decide if it's even a problem, because chances are it might not be. I'm tempted to install a zero glide nut on my licensed Bigsby equipped Gretsch. You could do that. I've used those before. I don't like them. The strings move around weird. I don't like them. I'm not a fan. New Gun Guy, how do I measure the input and output impedance of a guitar pedal by using a multimeter? I don't remember. I'm going to be honest with you. That's one of those things that I don't remember. I just don't remember. Cheap guitar parts versus expensive guitar parts. Do you have a video on cheap versus expensive tuners, nuts, bridges, necks, and so on? Stay tuned. Stay tuned. That's coming. How to replace Telecaster pickups. The fact that this guy constantly confuses the bridge and the neck pickups makes this video absolutely useless. Or you could just watch the video and be like, oh yeah, the switch is right there and the switch is right there. I don't know. Yeah, sometimes I suck. Sometimes I get confused or I get distracted because I'm like, dang, this guitar is so good that I don't even remember which pickup I'm playing on right now. Yeah, that happens. Sometimes my videos suck. That's all there is to it. What are you going to say? Go make your own. How to measure the nut height on a guitar. I'm done watching this guy's channels. He doesn't offer any value. His how to wind pickups video is just him winding a pickup because everything he does is proprietary. The video's just clickbait. This one's the same. You think there's any difference between Fender's bone and Gibson's bone? No. What a tool. All guitars need setups when new. Okay, I'm going to leave this up. This is a funny one. Let's go through this one. I like this one. This is fun. So, okay. So first of all, he's watched a bunch of my videos. I know he has because I can tell when he comments. I can actually see if you've commented on a video, I can actually look up all the videos that you've ever commented on, just so you know. So don't be talking this crap because I can tell. His how to wind pickups video is just him winding a pickup. Well, typically that's, I could pick my nose and not wind a pickup. And actually, there are two things. There are two things that I hold proprietary. There are two things: wind count and where I get my parts. I will tell you everything else. I have shown you everything else. We are so free with information here. I probably won't tell you like how tall some of our single coils are and stuff, but if you bought them, you could just measure them with a caliper, so it's like not that big a deal. So really the only thing is wind count and part supply. Those are the only two things that, and here's why. Obviously wind count, right? That makes all the sense in the world. Now, if you're curious, if you want to do this, and you want to wind pickups, Google, I'll tell you what to Google. So this is not proprietary. I'll tell you what to Google. In fact, Chris Fesker from Texas Toast Guitars called me the other day and he said, can you give me he's learning to wind pickups at his shop. He's got my wax pot and some of my tools there from when I go out there and hang out, and they bought their own winder. They're just playing around with some stuff. And so he called me and he said, hey, I want to wind some Strat pickups. Can you help me with where to start? And I said, absolutely, I can. Now, this doesn't mean that I'm going to tell him, oh, look at that. Matt from Texas Toast is calling me right now. Hey, I'm doing my podcast. Can I call you back in like half hour? Okay, sounds good. Bye. So that was Matt from Texas Toast right there. So actually, there is a thing you can Google. It's old. It's really old. Google vintage Fender guitar pickup specs. And what you'll find, it's on a couple of websites, and they're these old, like, remember the really old, like, AOL days kind of websites? And it's just like a colored page, like a teal blue page with like a grid on it. And it's got like 60s, all the 60s, all the 50s Strats and jazz basses and Telecasters and a whole bunch of pickups. And it'll tell you the type of wire that they used and the wind counts. That's what I started with 11 years ago, and we've evolved our own stuff. But that's where you can start. So I'm not keeping anything proprietary except for my own wind counts. I'll give you a wind count. If you want to wind a Stratocaster today, I'll tell you that on that website it says start with 7350. Start with 42 gauge double build wire or heavy form var and go 7350 winds. Start there. There you go. Not proprietary. Super important that we keep our own numbers, obviously, right? This one's the same. You think there's any difference between Fender's bone and Gibson's bone? There is, actually. It just depends where they get it from. They both suck, though. Fender's is worse, actually. What a tool. All guitars need setups when new. They do. They really do. See, we agree on something. Yeah, we definitely agree on something. Sorry, man, I lost track of time. No worries, man. That's cool. I'll call you in, about a half hour. All right. Too much reverb, Dylan. Something tells me that guy does everything dry. All right. Tone winder, ultimate CNC pickup winder review and demo. Oh, yeah. No, even with this machine, you won't create great pickups like Duncan or DiMarzio because there's one factor missing: the art of engineering. This is an interesting... Okay, the reason I thought this comment was interesting is not because he was ribbing me, but this is a conversation. In fact, Matt's here now from Texas Toast. This is a conversation that Matt and I and Chris have gotten in many times. Yes, I have a CNC machine, right? Matt has a CNC machine and he has access to a CNC machine. But that guy right there, then all of a sudden reduces everything to what a machine can do, right? And what's interesting is, I was thinking about doing a video about this, actually, and I may do a video about this. I might actually do it for Patreon only. I might do a Patreon only video. We'll see. About how much handwork goes into making a pickup, even if we were to use a machine to wind it. So the P90, for example, takes me from start to finish about 30 minutes to make one, or more, probably more, probably about 40 minutes. A Strat pickup takes me about that long. And both of those pickups take 8 of those minutes on the winder. So all the other things that you do, Strat pickups take even longer because we have to start with a sheet of phenolic. We have to go out to the laser. We have to cut it. Then we have to wash all the parts. Then the parts have to dry. I should do that video. I will do that video because it's a very interesting perspective. And so when you take anything and you involve a machine, obviously the soul of the thing is not in the output of the machine. It's in the rest of the time that we as craftsmen put into whatever we are putting it into, you know. I watch these guys that, you know, turn, you know, fountain pens out of acrylic or whatever. And yeah, they use a lathe to do it, but oh my gosh, the skill, you know. I always tell people, you're not paying me for the hour that it takes to make the part. You're paying me for the 20 years that it took me to learn to do it. So there you go. Let's see. Lower the price. How much can a chunk of wood cost? There again, kind of just minimizing everything about an instrument to the cost of parts is really an unreasonable way to live life. Because again, it's people like making a thing, right? On no matter what level, you know, even if it's a CNC machine, even if it's you know, okay. So for example, I'll go back to pocket knives again, right? This knife is not cheap. This is a zero tolerance. I just got it a couple weeks ago. I love it. It was 100% made on a CNC machine. Okay, all these parts. It's not cheap because the parts are expensive, because the engineering is expensive, because all of the things that go into it are expensive, right? So this costs what it costs, and it's an incredible product. But just because it was made on a machine doesn't mean that it's not like it just spontaneously combusts out of a machine. Humans put years of work. This knife was in development for like 4 years. Somebody, you know, stayed up late. Somebody thought about this while they were in the shower. Somebody, you know what I mean? Like to pull this off. And so the pickup that you get in the mail, and you put in your guitar, it didn't just come out of nowhere, right? Or anything that we buy, an iPhone, doesn't matter where it came from. There was, you know, blood, sweat, and tears, and sleepless nights, and smart guys in white shirts with pocket protectors, and those people put a lot of thought into all that kind of stuff. I think it's super important. Dylan, what do you prefer in a Strat pickup winding wise? Vintage, modern, hot? It depends on the guitar. Well, I'll tell you, I have 3 different winds in 3 different guitars because I want all of them. So I have our Highway 99s in this gold Strat that's back here. And that's going to give me my like Mike McCready sort of thing. I have some really, really low output pickups in a Strat in there that will give you sort of that Stevie Ray Tin Pan Alley kind of thing, even though that was lipstick pickups, but we won't talk about that. And then a little bit hotter, like so our hot 5s, I really like because I like the single hum situation. So I kind of have to have all of them, to tell you the truth. My favorite setup in a Strat though is single, really low output. Honestly, it's like why I like my Silver Sky. And then single hum is going to be 2 hot 5s and a Super 8 all day long. That's going to be it for me all day long. Yep. Let's see. Why does your guitar look like everyone else's? Oh yeah, we laser etched on camera a pickup cover. And there was a lot of people who said that it looked crooked. And I just want to mention this. It wasn't crooked. Basically, it was an off-center design. It was like a guy's name, I think, and then a star. And then the star had like a really long leg on one side that you couldn't see very well because of the way the lighting and the way the glare of it and all worked. But I used a laser beam to center it. So it was fine. Do you count on tone pots to add anything to your pickups? Or would you avoid them entirely if you could for the sake of tone coming through as you built it to? Okay, this is a great question because I think a lot of times this is based on a misunderstanding. First of all, tone pots don't add anything, ever. At least on a passive guitar that doesn't have a preamp in it, okay? So Fishmans and EMGs aside, or Seymour Duncan blackouts, okay? They do not, active pickups don't count. Passive pickups, tone circuits never add anything. They always subtract. That's how they work. They short some of the signal to ground. And you could say, well, I have one of those Reverends with the boost cut thing. That's a misnomer. It's actually cutting the opposite frequency to make it sound like the other one is boosting. The same thing with a volume mod. The same thing with like a treble bleed. You're not boosting anything. You're taking away the opposite to make it sound like the other one is louder. Okay, so it's always subtractive on a passive guitar. That being said, I really use my tone knob and my volume knob all the time. And our pickups work awesome at 10, at 7, at 5. Ask anybody who has our stuff. They'll tell you that they're really expressive kind of all over the volume knob and all over the tone knob. And I do that on purpose. I actually I have made my stuff work with using the knobs all the time. In fact, I've told people that. We have, our pickups have a lot of clarity to them, like nice sparkly top end. And what I've told people is if you come from a situation where you have a really dark sound and you use our pickups, you may find that you'll start using your tone and your volume knobs more when you didn't before, because there's so much more for us to do with that sound. So no, it's made. They're made for that. Yeah, it's made for that. Made to be used. Why is Gibson Custom Shop setup so bad? As often as Gibsons show up with poor setups, it's time to stop giving them so much credit. I understand setting things a little high to prevent buzz, but no guitar should come from this from the factory. This was on my Custom Shop Gibson. That guitar was amazing. There was nothing wrong with it. The nut was at 20,000 something. Again, for the same exact reason that we discussed earlier, you don't want to cut your nut too low, ever, right? Now, if you go to Texas Toast Guitars and you're doing one of their workshops, right, they'll tell you to come down to like 19, maybe even 15. But that answer might be different based on how good you were at your fretwork when you built that guitar, right? So Chris will work with you on that to cut your nut down to the right height, and so you won't have to do it later. But that's because you're doing everything as you set the guitar up, which is the same thing. When you have an artisan who is building the guitar from start to finish, who can communicate with you your specs and do that, then that's great. But when you are buying a guitar off the shelf, it's going to come at a standard spec that will probably be higher than what you want. On an SSH in a Strat, is the humbucker is not split pot 250 or 500? I just use 500s. With our stuff, it balances really well. I've been doing that for years, and it balances really well. I don't like 250. So here's what we do. We put 500s on everything, on a Strat, on an SSH setup, and then we split the tones. So the tone knob works separately from the bridge and the neck and middle. And then that way you can do what you want. So it allows you to leave, and a lot of time I've done this too, is I've actually put here's the other thing you could do. This is something else, just to give you an idea. You could put 250s in everything, but then put a no load on the bridge, right? So then you can crank that thing all the way to 10 and let it go. And because, you know, on 10, you don't have a tone pot, then it's like free, right? The only problem is if you go to use that tone pot a little bit, then it'll kind of like shelf it real hard, but it probably won't notice it. So the two alternatives could be 500s and everything with separate tones for the singles in the hum, or 250s and everything with a no load on the hum. That's what I would do. Either of those two things. I actually like the 500 way though. Going between humbucking mode and switching to single coil mode, there is a noticeable change in volume. Any way to fix this? Absolutely there is. We have a pickup called the center punch. And what we do is we have different winds for each of the coils, which make it different formulas, I should say, for each of the coils that make it to where when you split the coil, you're only losing about 20% of the output of the pickup. Therefore, your ear cannot perceive a volume drop. And again, I would encourage you, if you're interested in that kind of thing, to get in the comments and ask anybody who has used them, because we've sold thousands of them over the last 11 years, and people love them. They love them. They work really well. And they're a little hotter than a DAF, you know, than like a vintage PAF, but they work awesome. They clean up really well. They have great mid-range. They're actually, the reason they're called a center punch is because when I figured this out, I built this pickup. Like, this is one of the first pickups I ever came out with. And when I built it, when I came up with it, I was doing it to solve this problem. I wanted to coil split with no volume drop. So I figured out how to do that. And then the side benefit of it was at a really nice mid-range at a little higher output. It didn't lose that PAF kind of mid-range and sparkle. And so as a result, we named it the center punch. That's where that name came from. I wonder if one could add a 250K resistor in series with the humbucker. That just brings your volume down and it kind of goofs everything up. And it screws up your taper. Top 5 guitars every guitar player should have. Where can I buy your pickups? DylanTalksTone.com. Actually, you can go look down on the screen right there, and our Patreon, our Facebook, and our website is right there. Right there. Yeah, cool. This is fun. What pot value would you recommend for a passive volume pedal? Do the Ernie balls have 250s in them? I don't remember. I don't remember the answer to that. I think they have 250s in them. But they're not just a volume pot. I can't remember. I know that taper's different. They have a weird taper and they have a weird setup. Volume pedals are not just a volume knob. You might want to just buy one because they're not expensive. But they, yeah. Let's see. Let me go back through here and see if there's anything I missed. Hang on, I'm just trying to go through here and make sure I didn't miss any good questions. Can you stop a wind midway through, tape the wire, and then run it in reverse direction to finish and fill up a pickup bobbin? You can, and it won't work. I tried that one time, actually. It basically more or less kind of counters its own inductance and just doesn't do anything. I actually tried that. Super fun. Yeah, man. Cool. Well, this is fun, you guys. Thanks for hanging out with me. I really enjoyed the back and forth and all the. You guys had some really good questions. Thanks for some of those super chats today. You had some great questions in here. We had some new viewers, I think, some names I've not seen. So welcome. If you're here for the first time, if you're just commenting for the first time, thank you. We love that. That's awesome. And hope that you come back soon. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and the like button. We do this every Tuesday. And of course, we have other videos all throughout the week with another fun live stream on Thursday night at 8 p.m. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you later.